All right, so today's bad guy is Shimei. If you're not familiar with him, he was a descendant from Saul's family. And we're particularly talking about the time this is late in David's life where his son Absalom kicks him out. Jerusalem takes over as king. So as he's leaving, we're going to be in chapter 2 Samuel chapter 16. We're going to start with verse 5. As King David approached Bahurim, a man from the name of the same clan as Saul's family came out from there. His name was Shimei, son of Gera, and he cursed as he came out. He pelted David and all the king's officials with stones, though all the troops in the special guard were on David's right and left. As he cursed, Shimei said, get out, you man of blood, you scoundrel. The Lord has repaid you for all the blood you shed in the household of Saul, in whose place you have reigned. The Lord has handed the kingdom over to your son Absalom. You have come to ruin because you are a man of blood. So, are y'all familiar with Shimei? I wasn't at all at first, but he was cursing David because for some reason he thought that David was responsible for Saul's death. Pretty much, if you go through the background of this. And what we're trying to get at is, did he have any right to curse at David and shout out those things to him? Did he have all the right information? Basically, is what we're getting at. So the practicality that we're trying to bring out of this from this week is, how often do we have an opinion on something, or we hear something and we shout it out and it's totally the wrong thing? Have you all ever experienced anything like that?
Well, no, but we always think within, like when you hear about the people, you're like, there's always two sides.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be two sides. People see it two different ways or anything like that. So if you only hear one side, then you don't get the full story.
And interesting enough, on this same storyline, too, what's hilarious is David's men wanted to kill that guy. Said, go kill that. But David was like, I kind of deserve this one. He said, we're going to let this one go for right now. I guess we're all
Kind of a lighthearted, hopefully it's not being recorded, a lighthearted one that I remember a misunderstanding. My mom, thinking she was going to treat my sister, bought her like a pair of tights. I think it was like a pair of tights, and she thought she'd be real sweet and leave them on her bed for my sister. And she went in. My sister went in. And she's like, "Oh, I know what you're saying." It was beige, but she thought it said Biggie. So a sister, like in her insecurity, thought my mom was calling her fat or something. And so that's kind of been the family joke forever, is like, yeah. So it was kind of poor Lindsay. She's poor thing. But no, we recently, actually, the crazy thing about this, I mean, it didn't go to murder, but we recently dealt with somebody jumping to conclusions and jumping ahead and assuming some stuff, and it can have really bad consequences. Especially when you're dealing with other Christians or new Christians or maybe non-Christians. Like, man, that's how a Christian communicates, or that's how a Christian, So, it can be really dangerous.
Well, that brings up, they brought up a point in this book is, how does it look on us as Christians when we say things that are false? Or just our attitudes in general. If we're in the store and somebody makes us angry and we start cursing at them or just yelling at them in general, how is that supposed to, how does that reflect on the church or the kingdom of heaven? Pretty much. There's a lot of people that believe that Christians, especially this day and age, Christians were what's the word I'm looking for? Judgmental, or we're not accommodating for everything now. I mean, I don't know what the right word for that is.
How many chances do you have to make a first impression?
Good point. I think, I don't know, I mean, I'm pretty sure y'all are the same as me. I have when I get a first impression of somebody that sticks with me for a while.
Okay.
And I know I've made some bad first impressions in my life for sure. And,
About your father-in-law?
now you like me all the time.
The silence
Yeah, that's my sideburns that threw them off. So I don't want to dig too much into this, but let's just take, for example, today's climate. We often voice political things and maybe not the right things to say, like just because you're Democrat doesn't mean you believe in abortions. Not all Democrats believe in abortions. Not all Republicans are racist.
You know, it's funny because I've got my dad's a Democrat and my mom's a Republican. And so it really is one of those deals where it's like, you can't stereotype either group and say, you know, they're horrible because, you know, like you said, those two examples are often given. And so, yeah, that's always made me kind of, I'm thankful for it. I mean, we grew up as, you know, the whole household of, well, this guy's trying to fix or undo what the last guy did, you know, mom or dad would, depending on if it was Republican or Democrat in the house, you know, they would be saying, well, this president, you know, Obama's trying to undo what Bush did years ago or whatever. And for me, again, that kind of, it's to this day, it's a joke, but it's been good to have that balance. I think to kind of be like, no, there's a lot of good people on both sides of the, because I know and love two people at least that, you know, are on both sides of the fence there. So.
I try to keep my mouth quiet about it a lot.
Yeah.
Especially on social media.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It can be real dangerous.
Well, and communicating over that, it could be misinterpreted.
Oh, yeah. It is. Usually it is.
You can't read tone.
Yeah.
You can't read any of that, you know, you can't read empathy or anything like that. So it's just like, why even put it on there? Because someone's gonna get it misconstrued.
Yes, absolutely. So this Shimei guy, he, interesting enough, what's funny about him later on when King David returns, Shimei was the first one to greet him and praise him for coming back. And one of David's right-hand man was sitting there saying, well, he needs to die again. He's like, he cursed the king. How he is not allowed to do that since you are the anointed one. And David still spares his life. He actually made him a promise he would kill him. And funny enough, on his deathbed, he leaves it to Solomon to take care of him. So I kind of want to go here a little bit with King David. You always hear about, growing up, I always considered David as the boy in the field with the harp, and he did all these great things. Was he an actually great guy? David was not, especially in his later years, he did some horrible things. And we call him the man after God's own heart, which I believe that's actually, David was the worst and best of humanity. And I think what that means is God loves you through both. So that's why I take it after God's own heart.
It was those for God's name, though. You know, I mean, like, that's why he took on Goliath. It was like, this guy's blasphemy. It doesn't matter he's, you know, coming against the army or whatever. The biggest thing is like, this guy's cursing God. And so that's why he was willing to take him on. So I think he was probably a lot like a lot of us wanted to do the and just screwed up a lot.
Well, I think we grow up and we try to put these guys on a pedestal. I want to be like David. But I don't think the Bible's trying to create this for us to, be like these people. I think it's showing us an example of humanity and how just to learn from them. But, I kind of struggled with this one on, Shimei ended up dying later on because Solomon made him a deal. It's like, okay, you gotta live here in Jerusalem and you cannot leave. If you leave, that will be the day you die. But later on, one of his servants leaves and is found somewhere else, so he gets on his donkey, goes out and retrieves the servant. Well, Solomon finds out and ends up killing him. I don't know. I struggle with the whole bloodshed of that. Like, why was he killed? If you look at all these kings in the past, it's like a Godfather movie, pretty much. If you ever watched the Godfather, it's all read. I think that's where they got the movie from, honestly. They killed everybody to get over on their next reign. Everybody that was in their way said anything wrong to them or anything, their job was to kill them. It's just, I don't know, I struggle with that one.
Well, like you already said, just because the Bible says it doesn't mean that's what we should do.
Yeah.
Judas hung himself, so I don't think that's the example we were left to go do. I think there's some things that just show the wickedness of humanity. God told him in the beginning, don't get a king. You don't want a king. You're a king. And Samuel was super offended and super hurt, and God's like, it's not you, it's me. They're sinning against me. It's not against me. Don't worry about it. I think that there's that whole aspect of this is how things can go. There's also, again, there's a lot of good lessons because with David, one of the great lessons I've learned from David is you might be under a jerk like Saul, guy that tried to kill you literally.
Yeah.
But because God put him in that place, you're going to honor that and respect that. So, there's some awesome lessons to learn from David as far as going way too far in respect. In my opinion, if somebody tries to kill you, you don't I got to respect your position. No, you got to protect your life, But there's just a lot of examples. Good, obviously, good and bad examples, but I think that's kind of what this teaches me. Saul and David and Solomon. One of the great things I learned from Solomon is just, hey, you think you want to be a Hollywood rock star, but it's really not all it's cracked up to be. Everything's meaningless. Just enjoy what you got. Enjoy the wife you're going to use, enjoy the love of God, please him, So I think there's, again, kind of some good examples from bad guys. Good examples from bad guys from a lot of these stories.
Yeah.
Hey, Ron,
Yeah.
are you, I'm 100% with you, Sean, on that. Are you talking about kind of the physicality of that era when you say you struggle with what you see in terms of death and violence and all that?
He's asking that.
Yeah. Because, you grow up and you hear these stories of these great men and they still, was there no forgiveness there?
Right. Yeah. I see what you're saying then. One comment I was going to make is it's clear that God values life. I think we all know that, obviously. But like Sean said, there was just a period, extended period of a lot of violence, a lot of physical things, a lot of relationship things that, in our era, it's hard to even, comprehend the kind of ways things went. But to kind of tag on with what Sean was talking about, through Saul or David or Solomon or any of the others that, some good, some bad, some were both, is in a group that I've been getting together with for a long time over the years, just spending time in the Word and all. When we went through this era, the 2 Samuels, the 2 Kings, and the 2 Chronicles, one thing that really jumped out to us is how, from a leadership standpoint, one of the biggest challenges is handling the pride, the ego that can get inflated when put into places of leadership. And that's not exclusive to men. That's for men and women, and the challenge that is. And so there's so much through those books in this circumstance and some of the others we've looked at too, that the ego, the pride, the selfishness that can emerge in leadership because everybody's telling you you're this and that and the other, and you start believing that. And so for me, that's one of the big take homes in terms of capturing a good lesson from bad actions.
The humility aspect of it.
Exactly. Dale this morning said something that really struck me in the conversation he had about the shepherds and the wise men. True wise men kneel before the Lord.
Absolutely. So, in Matthew 15:18-20, I think this is, but the things that proceed out of the mouth from the heart, and those defile the man. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murders, adulterers, fornications, thefts, false witnesses, slanders. These are the things which defile the man, but to eat with unwashed hands does not defile the man. I think what we've had a problem, like what we're trying to tie in with this Shimei guy is what he said was wrong. He had false information and he blurted it out, and it ended up, because of the words that came out of his mouth, ended up killing him. And we're relating that to today's church. How are we supposed to represent and bring people to church in this lost world if we are vocally saying wrong things and blurting out without having the whole information on anything?
I always think of Stephen Covey. He talks about seek to understand, then to be understood. Obviously it's a biblical principle. Paul prays a lot for boldness, but he also prays that his, how does he say it? That it would be my speech would be seasoned with salt, and things like that would be kind or good towards outsiders, and that's one of those things that really makes me think about. Barb will forgive me because she loves me and she has a million times. But like somebody that doesn't know my heart might be like, I guess just, whatever. And so I think one of the takeaways is kind of along what Phil's saying, be humble about it, but even be prayerful. God, let me be careful about what I say around people that don't, because I am strongly against filling whatever blank you want, but I also want to love that person. I want to see them come to Christ, One of the battles that Barbara and I have faced, because like every commercial, it seems like it's just, we're being overwhelmed like LGBTQ plus, I guess. And, we have a lot of friends, a lot of people that are gay, and we want to love them. We want to see them come to Christ. But we also know that Jesus is strongly against that. That's not, he said man and woman. And so that's becoming a hot topic, and more churches embracing that and just kind of glazing over that. That's one of those things where we want to be careful and be wise about that. Shall we love people? Period. for us, race is, I mean, we're from two different countries, so race has never been an issue for us. But, you know, like different backgrounds as far as sexuality and different things like that. You know, just trying to be sensitive in that and wise about that. How do I approach that? How do I help that person realize whatever you were born with or think you're, whatever happened, Jesus can make you somebody else, something better. And even for the guy that's just like, man, I'll sleep with any girl that, you know, or any girl that I'll sleep with any guy that, whatever it is, you know, whatever kind of misguided, I'm talking specifically sexuality, but just in general, how can I love them and bring them to Christ? And I don't know what their mom, dad, cousin, and uncle did to them. I don't know what kind of, you know, kind of earthly hell or torment they've gone through, you know, to come to this point. I don't know what all they've been through. So how can I love them and give them some grace even in that horrible situation to let them see Christ? He's got something better. You know, there's abundant life, and not just all drink through a life, or all drunk through a life, or all sex through a life, or all, you know, run to whatever to get through this whatever kind of thing.
It brings up an interesting point. I'm kind of curious on how the church is handling that these days. I mean, more and more it's becoming out there. You're right, but specifically on some of those things. Yeah, handling it with grace is definitely.
What's the balance?
Yeah.
That's what we struggle with. Like, when am I accepting it and just, oh, that's fine, that's the way you're born, or that's the way things are? And when is it like, I disapprove, but I love you, you know, and I want you to know something better in Jesus, but I don't agree with the way you. I'm the chaplain at Collision King. I'm there on Wednesday mornings and Friday. Friday's my day off here, so I'm there all day. And we've got 2 or 3 people there that struggle with some sexual identity stuff. It's like, how do I, you know, how do I come and be the chaplain and pray for them and tell them about Jesus and all these things, but then either exclude somebody or
embrace it all the way.
yeah, just like, oh, that's great. You know, it's
So, like a lesson from you, this is what comes out of your mouth is you gotta be careful.
yeah.
I think they hear it enough from other people that, you know, it's wrong or whatever, and they've heard it 100 times from other people, and it's the way that, you know, you have to react with grace and love too. And I understand what you're saying, but I mean, they've got people coming at them going all the time, you know, a lot of times, maybe their mom, dad, who knows?
Yeah.
You know, it's not from their soft place.
And
They're not getting it, you know, just.
like hate brings out hate.
Yeah. That's not how we're supposed to respond at all.
Yeah, it's like, here's a quote in here: "Never let the words of a raging fool pervert the attitudes in your heart and drive your actions." And I get caught up. I know I do, and I have to walk away from it. When I do get to go to work in the office, there's always such negative talk about administration or whatever. We go on this rant. I'm like, why am I taking a part of this? I was like, this is not what the example I'm supposed to be. I don't need to be a bickering fool over this. And I need to be more, you know, set an example or something. But I think you gotta.
Ron, that's such a tough situation. As you guys talk through this, and forgive me if I get a little sideways every once in a while, because after I talked to Sean, I locked myself out and I missed some of the audio for a while. But when you're in a situation with someone and there's no real relationship there, you know, whether it's through responsibilities at work, some of the things you're talking about, some of the situations you may have been put in the past, you know, where you kind of have to be pretty firm and or not pretty firm, but straight up and all that. Those are tough conversations because there's no relationship there. So each side doesn't really know what's in the heart and where it's coming from. But the tough conversations that may have to occur when there is relationship, that makes a difference. And as you guys all know, and then Sean, one of the things that you were mentioning in terms of, how to balance. I don't know if you were kind of talking about something along the lines of conviction or correction or instruction, those kinds of conversations with grace and compassion and all that threaded in. And when there is relationship, those things can happen. Those tough conversations can occur through relationship. I agree with you guys. I think the tough conversations to navigate is when you really have to speak truth in situations where there's no relationship, and you kind of just you trust the Spirit and hope it comes across genuine.
Yeah, and I'd like to touch back with what Boyd said, first impression. How many times do you get a chance to make a first impression? So to build a relationship, that first impression counts. So if I'm bickering all the time at my job,
Yeah, huge piece.
who's gonna wanna listen to anything about Jesus from me? Or anything? They say, well, why do I wanna listen to you? So I think that's a good point that we'll bring back to what Lloyd says. How many times do you get the chance to make a first impression? Do y'all have anything else? Any other examples y'all can think of?
Well, I was going to say this for you guys in Western Limit. What do you do? Are you like with people, or are you in the hospital? Like, are you a anesthesia? Okay. So you deal directly with people. Okay. I couldn't remember if you were like lab or if you were okay. I know there's things legally that you can't do or say. Like for Barb, I know like she can't even say if a kid's sick or not. Like I don't know. It's like, where's Billy today? He's been gone for 10 days or 14 days. Like I don't know where little Billy is. And so there's a lot of legal things, not political. I'm sorry, legal things involved in your line of work that also bring a difficult challenge there to how to handle all this. But yeah, ultimately, man, my prayer is always like, let me err on the side of Christ. Let me err on the side of doing what He told me to do, whether that's praying for them, being good to them, whatever it is. Let me always err in that, because sometimes you feel like in a rock and a hard place. Like, and again, you can't really talk about Jesus in the school,
Can't pray for them, you just,
Yeah.
I cannot bend this week. That's all,
And
that's
y'all might be able to
close
get
as
away
you
with
get.
that, son. I know Ken, since he's got his own practice, he will ask somebody, can I pray over you for the surgery and stuff? But, and if it's your own business or whatever, sometimes you can get away with that. But, yeah, we're working for the police force, we're working for a hospital, it's a different ballgame. How that, I can't really tell you, hey, I'm a Christian, I really care about your soul. It's not just a this moment thing, it's I care about your eternity. Anyways, that was one thing that occurred to me when we were talking about all this.
It's difficult because unless you're Lily White, you're going to be judged.
Yeah.
A group of my buddies, we do a devotional in the mornings, when we got together. We haven't in a long time since this COVID broke out, but we used to meet in one office and do that just to keep our minds straight for the day. But we do have, I have some administrators that claim to be Christian and their actions say otherwise. So, do I call them out on that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, he's been always under the impression, he's like, there'll be a meeting, I'm just gonna kill him with kindness. And then when the kids are saying something in the car about someone, I'm like, just kill him with kindness. That's a good example of what you can do. You can do that and still be an example that way without, having to say, that you're a Christian in your job, that who knows what you're gonna get from that. Just because of that.
And often we'll never see the impact.
No, you're
Right.
But every once in a while I have seen it. long term.
That's cool.
Yeah, Laura, this was years ago, Laura was in a convenience store, and I don't know how this happened, but this guy was just talking about, he was a drug addict and stuff like that, and a police officer helped him, and he said my name, and Laura heard that. So, I mean, I would have never known that story if Laura wasn't there. It's supposed to happen to be right behind it. But, so yeah, I like that, killing people with kindness, first impressions.
Listening's probably gotta be one of the takeaways too, like just ask questions before. I'm kind of frustrated because it sounds like this, but is this what's really going on, or is this what really happened? Tell me what really went down. You know?
I always like to refer back to old James. You know, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. It's a great one. So, well, the bell rang for those of y'all at home. Appreciate y'all listening and commenting.